A few decades back in Indian cinema, there really wasn't much serious experimentation happening in sound, especially in the mainstream. Whichever car arrived and wherever it stopped, you would hear the same sudden brake sound. Every hit had the same dishing effect, and a lot of edits reused the same whoosh whoosh sound. So, how did it evolve? In our Tools of the Trade segment, today we are going to talk about sound in cinema. Even though timely shifts were happening in the sound industry with the arrival of Sing Sound in early 2000s, the event that made people look at sound in a more respectable way happened in February 2009 when the Oscars were announced and Resul Pookutty won the award for Best Production Sound Mixing. Even though Mr. Pookutty himself had done commendable works in movies like Black, this was a landmark moment as the Oscars generated a curiosity around many people to know the process. From then on, the sound department started to earn a bit more respectability from the audience and sound design and mixing began to get more importance. This video is an attempt to articulate some insights into the making of sound in cinema based on information I gathered from discussions with a few people currently working in the industry. My aim is to give those who are interested in the filmmaking process a little more perspective. I have tried to keep everything as simple as possible. If there are any mistakes or if I have left out important points, I'd really appreciate it if professionals from this field could point them out in the comments. It would definitely be helpful for those who are eager to learn more about these aspects. So please do check the comment section. So where does sound begin in a film? Ideally, the sound department should be involved as soon as the script is finished, right when the key technicians come on board. Directors who know the importance of sound will incorporate the sound designer from the initial stage itself. Those who consider sound as a mere medium of narrating dialogues or playing music to the audience will give the least priority to the sound designers. India is a country with multiple industries, and depending on the budgets they can operate, each industry has a different approach. And sound department is an area where there is significant difference in that approach. Down south, when films get announced, posters often list technicians like cinematographer and the editor, but you'll rarely see the sound designer's name. That's because at the planning stage, sound isn't given the consideration it deserves. So coming to the ideal way of having a sound designer from the beginning, when a sound designer reads a scene and imagines its soundscape, there are many suggestions they can make. It might be something simple like placing a prop that adds authenticity through its natural sound. Similarly, for Sing Sound films, where dialogue is recorded live, you have to consider the materials used in costumes because lavalier mics clipped to the body or clothing can rustle. To get clean recordings, good communication with the sound department is essential in location selection and set design. Fundamentally, a film's sound process has three stages. First one is dialogue recording. One route for that is production sound mixing, what we commonly call Sing Sound. This is the predominant way of capturing dialogues in Hindi mainstream films. Maybe due to the influence of Hindi films that are primarily being shot in Mumbai, Marathi films have also adapted Sing Sound as the primary mode of dialogue recording. The other one is ADR, automated dialogue replacement, what we usually call dubbing. A major chunk of the movies from southern industries like Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu and Kannada follow this way. The second phase is sound design. This is the crucial phase that begins after the picture's edit is locked. Every sound you hear, besides the dialogue and music, is added here. Sound mixing is the final stage. In simple words, it is the phase where they decide which sound plays from which speaker, what layer of the sound should be in foreground and what should be in the background, and how the overall balance should feel. Let's go into each one of them. Stage 1. Recording of the dialogues. Right now, Hindi cinema predominantly uses Sing Sound aka production sound mixing. The beginning of that trend actually happened during the early 2000s, where we had movies like Dil Chahta Hai and Lagan opting for Sing Sound, which were usually not considered for mainstream cinema. So in Bollywood and Hollywood, most movies are done using Sing Sound. But when it comes to films from the south, they rely on dubbing. However, a group of directors do use Sing Sound even in these industries. If you ask most people who work in sound department, they will tell you their preferred dialogue source is production sound aka Sing Sound. Why? Because an actor's best on-screen performance comes through when you keep the live recorded voice. Only legendary actors can recreate or even surpass their performance in dubbing. But most actors can't reproduce the exact dialogue delivery of their on-location performance in the dubbing booth. Often, they are dubbing for one film while acting in another film as a totally different character. So what is production sound mixing? It is the method of capturing performance right there on the set while the actors are performing. A set that uses production sound needs a lot of discipline. No unnecessary noise should exist in the scene. In last year's Hollywood Reporter's Technicians Roundtable, Resul Pookutty spoke about what he had to do in the early phases of his career to get clean sound. He said there were times he would buy milk and biscuits for a child in a nearby house so the kid wouldn't cry during takes. In the same interview, renowned cinematographer Sudeep Chatterjee shared another story about working with Pookutty. Once the sound department asked for mosquito repellents and biscuits. The repellents so that the people won't swat mosquitoes.
Martham. Good entertainment.
And biscuits to keep the stray dogs calm. Nakul Kamte is an important figure in Bollywood and he was the one behind the location sound recording of movies like Dil Chahta Hai and Lagan. He has talked about his experience in Lagan where Aamir Khan's spot boy got fired from the sets of that movie because he just wouldn't shut up during takes. In Sing sound films, characters' boots or shoes often get hush heels so you won't hear the tap footsteps. Using high-quality mics, primarily a combination of lavalier mics and boom mics, the production sound mixer captures these sounds. These mics may be clipped to actors' costumes or hidden behind set properties. For Lagan, Nakul Kamte has talked about the difficulties of placing mics. The English players in Lagan had shirts and pants and hence it was easy to mic them. But when it comes to Indian characters, they were mostly shirtless and Kamte had to be inventive and he tried placing the mics buried in the ground. A good production mixer understands the environment they are recording in and clearly communicates what the set must do to achieve the best audio. Sometimes a production mixer records certain sounds separately. They might also capture a sound bed, the ambient texture of a location without dialogue. So the sound designer understands the space. The sound of a room won't be the same as a hall, and the outdoor ambiences vary too. Capturing this location bed helps the designer at the later stage. A production sound mixer has to know and pay attention to a lot of things. I will list out a few important things. Mic positioning. The ideal spot for a lavalier mic is roughly at the dip in the center of the chest, here. But imagine two people talking in a car. Often they will tilt their head towards one side while speaking. In such scenes, the production sound mixer should place the mic slightly towards the side the head will turn to most often. Mic quality. Many mics are designed specifically for indoor or outdoor use. The Sing sound operator should use them as intended to get the best output. Sound dampening. Some locations aren't suitable for Sing sound, especially echoey spaces. You will need to coordinate with the art department to treat the space. Certain costume materials can cause muffling against mics. In such cases, consult the costume designer for alternatives. Because of the kind of awareness it requires, like the ones I already mentioned, production sound mixing is not at all a mechanical job where you just need to press the record button. Today in Malayalam cinema, doing Sing sound typically costs at least Rs 20,000 to around 40,000 per day. In other industries, the cost can go higher than that. The reason why Bollywood and Hollywood prefers Sing sound and southern industries opts for ADR, aka dubbing, is because of the difficulties in maintaining set discipline. Silence is a must when it comes to executing location sound movie. Nowadays in Bollywood, movies are being shot in extremely controlled environments like huge sets similar to Sanjay Leela Bhansali movies or CGI heavy war Pathan-like movies. Down south, industries like Malayalam are mostly shot on real locations. Even in industries like Tamil and Telugu, who operate on enormous budgets, they tend to cast actors from different industries, especially female leads and antagonists. So it becomes practically an easy choice to opt for dubbing rather than doing double work. The interesting thing is that Western filmmakers typically use dubbing for corrections or clarity. The primary source is location sound. They dub only when something needs to be changed. In South Indian industries, because actors from different languages often work together, the fix-it tool of ADR turned into the main method. That doesn't mean Hollywood never dubs. For instance, Christopher Nolan shoots parts of his films on IMAX cameras, which are very noisy. In those scenes, you can't rely solely on location sound. In Malayalam, Sing sound is becoming more frequent. Satyan Andikad's Onam release Hridayapurvam is a Sing sound film. Likewise, Akhil Satyan's Nivin Polly film Sarvam Maya, currently being shot, uses Sing sound. In Tamil cinema, the use of Sing sound in popular mainstream film is very minimal. One of the most talked about Tamil movie in the recent past that used Sing sound is Meyyalagan. Interesting thing is, Mammootty had revealed in an interview that back in 2000, before the release of Lagan and Dil Chahta Hai, Kandugundain had used Sing Sound for certain portions. Among recent releases with Sing Sound in Malayalam are Rorschach, Kannur Squad, Pachu, Malbudavalakkam, Atam, and Pani. When a film moves into post-production, sound design, another vital stage begins. In Hollywood, they have this differentiation of sound designer and supervising sound editor. Strictly speaking, sound design means creating sounds from scratch. The classic example is Jurassic Park. We have an idea about how the dinosaurs looked from the fossils we found, but we don't know how they sounded. Sound designer Gary Ridgestone, using his imagination, combined and treated various animal sounds to create the roars and growls we hear in that film. Likewise, the aircraft in the recent Dune films are fictional. Their sounds were designed. If you take the literal meaning, that's sound design. But in our industry, we use sound design to refer to a major chunk of sound editing. But when you look at the fact that the horse galloping sound is created through a different approach in Foley, it kind of makes sense to call it sound design. Usually, sound design starts after the film's editing is complete. Three things run in parallel in the sound design phase: dialogue editing, sound effects editing, and Foley editing. Technically, dialogue editing sits under sound design, but in the workflow of dubbed films, it often runs parallel, like background score. Quite often, the dialogue edit track goes straight to mixing, the final stage of sound. Meticulous designers who spend more time on detail, especially when the same person handles recording and designing in sync sound projects, tend to incorporate dialogue editing within sound design. Thus, in Bollywood, dialogue edit falls under sound design. And yes, background music development usually runs parallel to sound design. Dialogue editors have a more significant role in sync sound films. In crowded locations where multiple mics are used, they filter and clean the dialogue with great precision. This isn't a job without any creativity. Working with the sound designer, the dialogue editor decides which source is most suitable. For example, if a lavalier mic on an actor is muffled, they might switch to the boom or even to the audio captured on a co-actor's mic, if that's cleaner. In the National Award-winning film Atam, a single scene has 10 or more actors, each with their own mic. With every mic picking up every actor's sound, to some extent, the dialogue editor's job becomes extremely challenging because he needs to find the best source for each line and mute the rest. Another technical task for the dialogue editor is face matching. A lavalier mic sits on the actor while the boom mic is a bit farther away, placed above or below. The physical distance creates a slight delay between the sources. Face matching is done to fix those delays and make the sound perfect. Even in dubbed films, dialogue editors work, but compared to sync sound, it's somewhat easier. Today, even in dubbing, to simulate a sync sound feel, dubbing engineers often use two mics, a boom mic and a primary mic. So face matching still matters. If there are lip sync issues or evident lip smacks, the dialogue editor fixes them. In the West, like I already said, ADR aka dubbing is mainly used for corrections or when there are CGI heavy sequences without the actor present. Here, especially in South Indian cinema, ADR often becomes the main dialogue source. Foley is the process of recreating the small sounds you see on screen. If a character in specific boots walks across sand, Foley artists will spread sand in a studio and wearing similar boots, recreate the footsteps by matching the actor's movements. Boots are just one example. Foley covers everything from the rustle of a shirt to placing a glass on a table, which sounds different if there is water in the glass. Foley artists also know shortcuts. For instance, they know what to strike on which surface to mimic the horse's hooves. The Film Companion channel's Cheat Sheet series has an episode showing how Foley is done. I'll try to add that link in the description or info card. Please do check it out. Foley has its own editor and mixer as well. Sound effects editing is about adding various effects and backgrounds to the sound bed. It primarily uses library sounds and recordings made for the specific movie. In situations where the sound designer is not in a place to record a particular sound, they use the help of purchasable online libraries. In the recent Malayalam film Empuran, the sound of helicopters were done using sounds bought from online libraries. Sometimes teams go on location to record these sounds. For Parashiraja, Resul Pookutty recreated some scenes with soldiers just to capture the accurate sound. Everyone now knows that Premam wasn't a sing-sound film. Yet to keep the college atmosphere feel natural, designers Sri Shankar and Vishnu Govind recorded college ambience separately. So designers combine sounds they already have, buy additional ones, or record specific effects for the film during effects editing. Sound editors lay both library and recorded effects in sync with the scene. In parallel, Foley artists also provide their tracks. Both these happen under the supervision of the sound designer. Once everything is laid, the sound designer really takes the charge. Others add sounds as required by the cut, but the person who breathes life into it is the sound designer. From the moment the director narrated the script, a sound designer should have a clear vision of how the film should sound. For example, imagine a creaking old door in a horror film. The sound designer should have a clear sense of what kind of creak evokes the desired feeling. They check whether the sound editor's choices align with that vision. If not, they either swap the sound or enhance it. Another example is consider the mass moment in a Rajinikanth film where he moves his hands to create swagger. It is the sound designer's creative sensibility that decides what kind of sound will feel massy to today's audience when he snaps into action. Then there are the whooshes we often hear in action scenes. The sound editor may place the punch, but it is the sound designer who ensures that the whoosh complements it to deliver that satisfying impact. Sometimes both the effects department and the Foley department might create sounds for the same moment. The sound designer decides which serves the film better and chooses the right one. Stage 3 is sound mixing. Those who closely follow their favorite films on social media might have seen crew members post a locked and loaded photo near the release time with the director and sound technicians standing in front of the screen. That is the final mix. The sound mixing engineer is essentially defining the sound experience you have in the theater. In simple terms, this is where decisions are made about what you hear more and what you hear less. Dialogue, background score, and the effects we discussed earlier all come together in front of the mixing engineer as a package. In some scenes, dialogue must sit on top. In others, effects should dominate. Based on the emotional state of the scene and in consultation with the sound designer, director, and music director, the mixing engineer stages the sound. They also decide which speakers carry the sounds. If a character walks from left to right across the frame, the sound must pan accordingly. Mixing person also takes care of the sound clashes. For example, if a punch effect from the sound designer collides with a musical note from the music director, the mixer decides what to keep in favor of the movie. Mixing also has stages. First comes the premixes, and they are dialogue premix, effects premix, background score premix. In premix, technicians typically do panning, equalize volume, and add reverbs. As I mentioned earlier, panning gives direction to sound. If a character moves from left to right, their voice should feel like it moves. Dialogue edits will be done in a particular studio, Foley edit will be done in a different studio, the sound effects will be done in a different studio, and the same is the case with music track. So in the premix of the things, they equalize the volumes of all the tracks recorded at various studios. Reverbs added to the sounds make it a lot more natural. Reverbs are basically a form of sound reflection. The reflections in a room are different from those in a large hall. The very big and obvious reflections are called echo, and we don't really experience that in our daily life. In day-to-day life, what we experience is small reflections, and reverbs are those small reflections. Reverbs get added during premixing to dialogue, effects, and even to music if needed. When a dubbed film doesn't feel dubbed and seems as natural as sync sound, one reason is that appropriate reverbs were added to match the scene's space. After the premixes, the main mixing engineer sits down. With dialogue, effects, and score in hand, they blend them to create the best overall result. Just as the sound designer creatively refines what the sound editor assembled, the mixing engineer sculpts what premix engineer prepared. Often ambience is truly built in the mixing. Take Manumal Boys for example. The sound when they move into the cave isn't like the sound in an open space. That sense of being in a cave is created in the mixing. There is overlap between sound design and mixing. For example, when the character is suddenly shocked and we shift to their point of view, you often hear the world go muffled. If that was clearly specified in the script, the sound designer can do it. But if the mixer believes doing it can increase the impact, they can create it during mixing. Sound design, mixing, and background score are a combined effort with interconnected give and take, which eventually elevate the film. Some films need a sync between score and design, and in such situations, the designer and music director will work in tandem to create that cinematic high. From everything you heard so far, I hope it's clear how much precision and creativity the world of film sound demands. In films with fixed release date, whenever delays happen at different stages due to various technical reasons, it's usually the sound department that ends up carrying all that pressure. Even if the sound department clearly mentions right from the beginning that they need at least 30 days for designing and mixing, in most cases, they don't get the footage in time to actually start the work 30 days before release. For many major films we see, the final mix is often logged just a day before release. While corporate interference has in general affected the overall quality of films in Bollywood, one thing that seems to happen properly is that departments as crucial as sound are usually given enough time. In southern industry, in many cases, the mix and the content upload happen literally on the eve of the release. Now let's talk about a recent injustice that happened in this field. I mentioned the three areas of sound: production sound mixing, sync sound design and sound mixing. Up to the 69th National Awards, there were separate awards for all three. But from the 70th National Awards announcement, the year when Allu Arjun got Best Actor, these three categories were cut down and merged, effectively awarding only sound design. People in this field protested, but the responsible authorities haven't restored the dropped categories yet. To reduce the backlash this time, when the National Awards were announced, they gave a special jury mention to final mixing. The very first stage, production sound mixing, still remains ignored. At the 68th National Awards, the award for production sound mixing was given to Kannada film that was actually dubbed but felt like sing sound. The cluelessness of the jury was that stark. Let's see if they ever restore those categories that expose their own incompetence. There is also a long-standing tussle between theatres and the sound mixing team. Often when audiences complain dialogues aren't clear, mixing is bad, the theatre may share some of the blame. A mixing engineer works in a calibrated suite at a specific volume on calibrated speakers. Many theatres raise or lower levels of volume for their own convenience. That means what the sound mixing engineer crafted is not what the audience hears. Mixers frequently complain that theatres don't calibrate their speakers. If a speaker develops a problem or gets replaced, you won't get the best output just because it's been swapped. Someone from companies like Dolby needs to come and calibrate. Often that doesn't happen. Many theatres set up their sound their own way. Today, several large balcony screens have been converted to Dolby Atmos. But Dolby doesn't recommend Atmos for balcony theatres. If you calibrate it so people in the balcony can hear properly, those sitting down closer to the screen won't get good sound. It can even cause headaches. Ours is a dialogue-heavy cinema culture, so what the theatre operators generally do is that they will increase the volume of the center speaker, which is at the center of the screen, and they will also increase the impact of the subwoofer so that in action sequences, the punches will get enhanced. All those nuances of sounds the designer and mixer might have added to surround speakers will get ignored. Can we blame theatres alone for changing the sound as they like? In southern cinema, not entirely. Because South Indian mainstream films are celebrated in a particular high-energy way. And mixers sometimes push audio levels to achieve that theatrical impact, even at volumes that aren't great for speaker health. Since that happens, exhibitors of Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu cinemas look after the investment. They won't buy expensive speakers to use them at full blast for a short lifespan, right? This doesn't usually happen with Hollywood and Bollywood films because they have standardized mix levels. If we set a guideline at the censoring level to ensure that the mixing volume doesn't exceed a limit, and if we ensure theaters exhibit films at the exact mix level through proper inspection, the industry can avoid this blame game. If you feel that this video on the presence of sound in cinema has in any way added to your understanding, I hope you will give it a like and share it with others who might be interested in this topic. Thank you.